everyone, Vegas Film Critic here, Jeffrey K. Howard here with a vlog that I've been planning to do for the longest time, and it's just because I've been asked this question so many times: how do you become a film critic? And it's not an easy answer. It really isn't, because it could be answered so many different ways. It depends on what you, as the person who wants to be the critic, what your goal is. What is your end goal in becoming a film critic? So I thought I would do this vlog where I would explain not only how I became a film critic, but what's expected of you if you wanted to be a film critic, and just ways for you to reach your goal. Because I meet people all the time who are like, just tell me, oh my gosh, you have the best job in the world. I want to be a film critic. How do you become a film critic? Or when I introduce myself, like, what do you? Well, I'm a film critic. Well, how did you get that job? How do you become a film critic? And I say to myself, wow, that's a loaded question, because it's not just something as like answering an ad in the paper. Oh, geez, that's old. Wanted film critic, and you just apply. It's kind of complicated. It really is. Well, there's just many different answers. So I thought I would sit here and tell you guys exactly how to become a film critic, how I became a film critic, and all the different ways you can become a film critic. All right, rule number one, you have to love movies. And, you know, look behind me. You can't see over here. I mean, I have thousands of movies. You have to love movies. And when I mean love movies, eat movies, breathe movies, sleep movies, constantly. And when I think back about what a tremendous movie fan I was, it started back when I was a little boy. I mean, we're talking 10 years old. I was going to the movies by myself. I was seeing movies over and over and over again. I was recording movies in the movie theater with my dad's tape recorder so I could listen to movies when I would get home. I would get everything on video. You know, for Christmas, I would like go through and say, look, I want this videotape for Christmas, or I want this video. I still have all my VHS tapes from the glory days of VHS. I still have every VHS I've ever gotten for Christmas and bought. It's crazy. I have a massive movie collection. Why? Because you have to love movies. A lot of misconceptions of being a film critic. People are like, oh, you have the greatest job in the world. You get to watch movies for a living. Yeah, but we watch everything. You can't be biased. You can't say, I'm only going to go see Captain America. I'm only going to go see Wolverine. I'm only going to see the movies that I want to see. It doesn't work that way. You have to see everything. And I don't mean like absolutely everything. You know, it's impossible to see everything. But I see between 200 to 300 movies a year. Okay, because there's different tastes out there. There's different people who have different tastes in movies. Like everyone who's not going to want to go see, Warcraft, they're going to go see The Meddler with Susan Sarandon. Or you have someone who wants to watch a foreign film, or somebody who wants to watch a documentary. You have to have a well-rounded opinion on all these different genres of movies. You can't just pick and choose and say, look, I'm only going to do these kind of movies. So you have to love all kinds of movies all the time. Doesn't mean you have to agree with them. You can hate them, but you have to love the movies more than anything else. That is the most important criteria in becoming a film critic. Second, read. Read and know your movie history. It's so important to know not only what's going on now, but what went on 100 years ago. Silent film, foreign film, everything. Get your hands on specifically what interests you, but also a well-rounded knowledge of the film industry and film history. For example, I have hundreds of books that I've collected over the last 40 years. I mean, I can go to any book if you have any question. I know it's called the internet now, but in my massive book collection, sometimes it's great just to have a book in your hand to read the history of a movie studio. Take an example right here. Look at this giant coffee table book. This is the Warner Brothers Studio store. Studio history, not the stores. Those went out of business. You can go to all these great used bookshops in your town, especially here in Las Vegas. We have a ton of them that have all these books for just practically nothing. And these are great reference books. They tell you about, by year, all the movies that came out, the directors, the production, the history of the studio. This is just incredible information. I have Warner Brothers, I have Paramount, Universal Studios, all of it. It all starts with knowing, for me, American history for the Hollywood studio system. Sure, cinema is a worldwide art form. I grant you that. But I'm talking about American perspective right now for the sake of this conversation. So starting with your knowledge of all the movie studios and all the history that came before it is incredible foundation for you to be a film critic. A few more examples of things you want to read. Look, this is some of my books from my collection I just grabbed off the shelf. Look at this, the Hollywood surf and beach movies. This is a whole history of Frankie and Annette. This just gives you an example how, take something you really like. I love the beach movies. I just love the 60s, and I love that cinema and that era. And this tells you a whole history of that. Just shop on Amazon. It's amazing what people are doing. Also, check this out. I'm a big fan of comedy. You can probably see the Laurel and Hardy box set. Which way? Right there. I have so many multiple books on Laurel and Hardy, and this breaks down every short. It breaks down every feature film. I mean, I love it. I love to sit with this and reread everything. Also, pick out movie stars, pick out directors. I mean, for example, look, I just got the Lee Marvin biography, Point Blank. And also, this is one of my favorite books. I'm a huge Hitchcock fan. Hitchcock and Truffaut. This is a great book where Francois Truffaut sits down with Hitchcock and they talk about every film he ever did in great detail. Incredible book. And if you love Hitchcock's films, this is such a great companion to that, to find out. It's almost like you're sitting at the table with them. So it's important for you to read these kind of books. Find out what interests you and springboard off of that. I'm a Western fanatic too. It's really hard, for me to choose something specific because I love comedy, I love thrillers, I love film noir. There's so much, but that's what it takes to be a film critic. Lesson number 3, learn the language of film, the grammar of film. You'd be surprised how many people who have seen so many movies don't understand what composes a scene. It's called coverage. How is a scene shot? Where is the placement of the camera? A close-up, extreme close-up, a master shot, a wide shot, an insert. So you have to learn to recognize the language of film and how movies are produced, how television shows are produced. It's all uses the same grammar on the placement of the camera. So find out the technical aspects of filmmaking, from lighting to lenses to just to have an idea of what kind of scene is being shot, and you can see the placement of the camera, and you can also see how the director and how the fruition of the story and the storytelling element comes to life through the placement of the camera and the language of film. It's very important. There's a great scene that I love to use for the language of film to demonstrate that in Casablanca, where Rick sits down with everybody, the Nazi guys and everybody, and has a drink for the first time. And if you watch that scene, you can see all the different types of coverage for that one scene. And every time a camera cuts away, that could be a take like to a close-up or a master shot or a two-shot. Every time the camera cuts away, that could be a take that was maybe a week later, a day later. It's not all continuous. It's what I'm trying to say. So when you watch the movie, or that scene, you'll see how they shoot it in a master shot. They go to a close-up of Bogart, a two-shot of Bogart and Claude Rains, maybe an insert shot of the Czech. But every time you see it, you can see the language of film, where the camera's placed, the art of editing, all of that. And it's important to know that while you're watching a movie, because you can critique a movie on the aesthetics of the film. All right, lesson number 4. This is the big one, critiquing a film itself. Now, you're probably saying, well, Jeff, it's more of a gut reaction. Of course, that's absolutely. Film is art. You're going to watch something. You're going to like something about it that I hated, or I hated something that you liked, or whatever. But when it comes to critiquing a film, there are different ways to do it. One, I'm talking from my perspective. When you see a movie, you kind of just forget everything else is going on around you. You let the story kind of tell you and dictate where you're going to go. You don't sit there and go, oh, I can see there's an error over here, a continuity error. Oh, look, there's a plane crossing overhead while John Wayne is riding on his horse in 1890 and she wore a yellow ribbon. No, you don't do things like that. You go in there, totally shut yourself off from the outside world, and you hope that this story that's about to happen on the silver screen is going to transport you into that world. So the first thing that I do is I sit there, turn myself off, and I let the film tell me a story and transport me away to another place and another time. Also the acting. So you can critique a movie on the acting. Is the casting right? Is this the right person for the right role? How do the actors convey the story? So using the actors is also an important element in critiquing a film along with the story. Placement of the camera, the aesthetics of the film. How did the director show a particular shot? How did the director use the camera in this sequence? It's really important sometimes that he's saying something, or she is saying something with the camera, the placement of the camera. Is it up high? Is it down below? Always kind of think to yourself, what is the director trying to tell me with this camera movement or with this shot? Sometimes it's not just they don't point and shoot. No, they put the camera in a specific place for a specific scene, and always for a reason. I remember one of my film school teachers said, always remember what the first and last shot of a movie is. And sometimes I think of that. Sometimes like it has a meaning to it. So always pay attention to where they're putting the camera, why they're putting the camera. And sometimes they're just placing it for coverage, but sometimes the director is trying to tell you a lot more than that. So keep that in mind. Acting, placement of the camera, the story, that you can critique as well. Another thing a film critic has to do is also keep up on pop culture. Always read the daily Variety, always read the trade papers, read Hollywood Reporter, read Cinema Blend, read Yahoo Movies, read Google, read everything. Always know what's going on in Hollywood. Always try to keep up on what's happening, the latest technology, the latest story developments, what directors, what scripts are being greenlit, all of that kind of stuff. That's really important too, because you want to keep up to date not only on what's happening in Hollywood in the past, but also the future. Another recommendation on being a film critic is read scripts. Scripts are phenomenal insight to movies in terms of, it's almost like reading a book. I mean, it is reading a book, but I mean, there's these incredible descriptions that don't make it up on screen, that either describe an action, either describes a setting. There's a great one in my favorite movie, Jaws, when they go to Quint's shack for the first time. There's this long explanation about what's hanging on the walls, the smells, the decorations of all of Quint's little shack, and it's just there in the final shot. But to see that they write those descriptions, it's like reading a really well thought out novel. So I recommend reading scripts, especially of your favorite movies. I mean, I got Jaws, I've got so many scripts in my collection. I love to know how those were written and how they are taken from the page to the silver screen. All right, so now you're saying, all right, Jeff, I watch movies, I love movies, I read books about movies, I read all the daily trade papers, I read everything online. You're telling me how to critique a film, from the story, from the acting, to the aesthetics of the film, where the camera's placed, what the director's trying to say. There's so many different elements. Okay, I'm ready, I got all that, but now where do I put my reviews? How do I become a film critic professionally? Now, for me, I think it's very, very important to get one of these. This is my degree from UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and I went to film school, and then I also went to communication school, meaning I learned journalism. And I wanted to be taken seriously as a journalist. And don't get me wrong, or don't misunderstand, film criticism is journalism. I mean, Roger Ebert won the Pulitzer Prize for film criticism. So it was important for me when I decided to embark on being a film critic 20 years ago that I was going to be taken seriously as a professional, meaning you have to have a college degree in journalism for that foundation. And from there, I started as the film critic for the Las Vegas Sun newspaper, the first ever in the 50-year history of the paper. I was the critic for the Las Vegas Weekly. I was the critic for Scope magazine, and then also jumped into radio. So I do radio for CBS, Beasley Broadcasting, Voice of America. I've been doing radio for 15 years. And then television, NBC, Fox, ABC. Now you're saying, well, wait a minute, Jeff, how did you get all that? Well, to begin with, it's because of my education. You get internships. You start by talking to editors. You start, first and foremost, I started at UNLV. I did a movie review show on the communications department at UNLV TV. Also, I wrote for the college newspaper. I did movie reviews. So in terms of academics, that is where my foundation came from. To be a professional movie critic and to be taken seriously, you have to have that foundation of journalism to begin with. Now, if you're saying, well, wait a minute, Jeff, I don't want to do all that. I just want to express myself. Well, that's fine. You can start your own YouTube channel. You can start your own blog. You can start your own podcast. There are so many ways to express yourself. But people say, wait a minute, I want to do this professionally. Now, things have changed a lot in the last 50 years, especially in the last 10 years, is that they're cutting entertainment everywhere. So it's getting more and more difficult for professional journalists to make a living doing film criticism. Now, remember, there's a difference between a film critic and an entertainment reporter. Those are completely two different things. So when you watch Entertainment Tonight, when you watch Access Hollywood, those are not film critics. Those are entertainment reporters. There's a big difference. I belong to the Broadcast Film Critics Association. I belong to the Society of Professional Journalists. I belong to the Las Vegas Film Critics Society. They're all journalistic endeavors. They're all journalistic companies that promote journalism and film criticism. So there's a big difference between entertainment reporter and a film critic. And also, if you want those jobs that do pay, you have to begin by being poor and broke. I still have a Xerox copy of my very first check, once upon a time, from the Las Vegas Sun, my first film review, which was, what was that movie called? It was with George Clooney, the one Peacemaker, but it was the first one he did for, I forget the company. Well, that wasn't it was DreamWorks. It was their first film. That was my first review for the Las Vegas Sun, and I got my check for it. I got $50 a week, and I Xeroxed it, and I became a professional film critic for the very, very first time. Depending on what you want to do, if you just want to express yourself, podcast, YouTube channel, what are you waiting for? Go for it. Just start recording, just like this. Welcome to 2016, the 21st century. If you want to do it as a professional and get paid, my suggestion is, and I always, regardless of what you want to do in life, is always the academic route. I don't care if you want to be a film critic, if you want to be a computers, whatever, get that college degree, because that is going to put you ahead of almost 80% of the other people out there in the workforce. But I strongly recommend that you do a college degree, film school / communications journalism, because that gives you connections, that gives you networking, that gives you the experience, the internships. I mean, I interned at all the TV stations once upon a time, all of those things. But I think an education as a foundation is essential. Well, there you have it, how to become a film critic from me, a film critic, for the past 20 years. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I'll try to answer them. I'll do another vlog answering all your questions, or you can email me. I get this question a lot of times. How do you become a film critic? And it's just not a one-line answer. You know, it depends on what kind of film critic you want to be. Someone who's a fan who just wants to express themselves, someone who wants to be a journalist and work at a radio, TV, or online outlet. There's all kinds of requirements to do that. Now, you know, you could prove me wrong. You could say, well, wait a minute. I have strong writing skills. I have strong skills in video production, and I just want to go for it and submit my stuff. You could. An editor could hire you. But I'm just saying, for me, I think an education is so important, and it's a great and proper foundation, not only just for film criticism and journalism, but for any endeavor you wish to seek. All right. For more reviews and interviews, just surf on over to my film critic site, VegasFilmCritic.com. Yeah, that's right. And please comment below, subscribe, thumbs up, share. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Vegas Film Critic Jeffrey K. Howard. I'll talk to you next time.